Like this, body they always sweet me. Anytime I see say we still get vibrant and honest barristers like this for this country. More I watch it because I don't say after this video, body go begin pepper INEC chairman anywhere he did. Because no anyhow they want to do, and no matter how long or how hard you try to cover the truth must surely surface, and Peter Obi must reclaim his mandate. When I watch the video, when I hear what this barrister exposed for inside this interview, anywhere where they this is the video you need to share today, because the whole world they need to see and to know what they happen for inside Nigeria. When I watch the video.
Yesterday, the Independent National Electoral Commission admitted that there were technical glitches, and they also promised to improve on its processes. They say that they will deploy all technologies at its disposal in line with the relevant provisions of the Electoral Act 2022 as amended in conducting the governorship election. Now, in your assessment, how much confidence does this election management body still inspire?
Thank you for having me once again. I think it will be very dishonest for anyone to say that the Professor Yakubu Mahmoud led INEC is one that inspires confidence for the consensus Nigerians. It is obvious that the INEC leadership of today lacks credibility, is devoid of integrity, and is bereft of the managerial and logistical capacity to organize credible elections. I personally do not buy the very trivial and flimsy excuse that what apparently looks like a sabotage of beavers in part was due to glitches. Nigerians are not dummies. If Mahmoud is saying that the non-transmission of results through the beavers, the electronic transmission, that the failure was due to glitches, it should have gone beyond that. They should explain to us what exactly led to the glitch. Here is the man who collected over 300 billion to organize this election. He had 4 years. INEC has a well-equipped ICT department with experts. They knew exactly what was to come. They knew the number of registered voters. They knew the number of PVC collection. They would have had their own projection on the number of persons that were going to vote. And they know exactly the number of polling units in the country. And they also know the number of officers who were going to log into the IREV, the INEC result viewing portal. What that presupposes is that any sane, responsible, and honest commission, that is even supposing that this was due to negligence or glitch or whatsoever they want to call it, would have prepared, would have put in place the required infrastructure to ensure that that was avoided. But I voted in this election. In my polling unit, 218 voters were credited. The beavers properly and effectively captured every single one of them. In fact, in my own case, when I went to vote, the lady tried to accredit me. The beavers did not capture it the first time because of my beard, because my appearance differs from what is in my previous years at the time I registered. She did it a second time, and it clearly showed that I was successful. I was accredited. So how come that the same device that is supposed to have dual purpose or purposes, accreditation and electronic transmission, work accreditation, effectively almost throughout the country, over 80% success. But the same device suddenly developed faults, not in the National Assembly results, not in the Senate, not in the House of Reps, but specifically in the presidential election. This, for me, is a clear case of INEC abdicating from the promises they had made to Nigerians. For me, I am convinced that INEC had made up its mind to sabotage this process. Why this is particularly painful for me is that Mahmoud has basically succeeded in taking us back to the pre-2015 era. to the period under the 2010 Electoral Act, because we must recall where we are coming from. Under the 2010 Electoral Act, the Supreme Court said that the issue of the use of technology in our elections was not cognizable by the Act. Therefore, you have people like Nyesom Wike, Udom Emmanuel of Akwa Ibom, in Benue and several other states, whose elections were shown to have been conducted in violation of the requirements of the smart card reader in terms of accreditation. But the Supreme Court still validated those elections because the Act at that time did not recognize the use of technology. We now have the new Electoral Act of 2022, which in Section 60, subsection 5, makes it mandatory that results shall be transferred from the polling unit directly to the IREV, even though IREV is not mentioned in the Act. But the Act says that the manner of transfer or transmission shall be determined by the Commission. And INEC, pursuant to its powers under the Constitution and Electoral Act, issued the guidelines and regulations for the conduct of the 2023 elections, which I have read thoroughly. Clause 38, Clause 48, and several other clauses of that regulations makes it clear that there must be electronic transmission. And Mahmoud promised Nigerians this repeatedly. If you go on my Twitter, you will see I have even shared a document by INEC. Mahmoud at the Chatham House, several fora, even came out to say that reports that they were going to abandon the electronic transmission was fake news. And suddenly this same man wants us to believe that it was due to glitch. This was deliberate, this was intentional. Now, regarding his promise that this will be remedied in the governorship, I will advise Nigerians, do not take whatever Mahmoud says for it. This man has lost integrity. This man has lost credibility. A man who promised something repeatedly and failed to deliver. Why should we believe him? He claims, that there were some Southeast people in INEC, who may have acted contrary to, what INEC wanted. I don't believe that. I think he's just trying to distract us. The truth of the matter is that this could not have been possible without the complicity of the chairman of INEC. And at the National Collation Center, agents of various political parties raised issues regarding the non-compliance, regarding the issue of the IREF. Mahmoud arrogantly to address that issue. Simply said was, go to court, which has become an insulting refrain for the political class in Nigeria. When they rig elections, they tell their opponents go to court. It's a way of taunting lawyers and the legal profession.
Okay, Inibe, when you say that Nigerians should not trust what INEC is promising for next Saturday's elections, the governorship and the House of Assembly, are you not unwittingly encouraging voter apathy? Because when you say that, people will say, what's the point anyway, if there will still be issues with technology and if we can't trust INEC, people may not want to come out. That's one question. Second point is, does this come down to the bigger theory? In other words, the issues that INEC has admitted, happened during last Saturday's election, they are saying that it's not limited to just one part of the country or just one political party, that it was widespread and therefore it was not targeted at anybody. Technology failed and human errors, of course, was complicit. Will that come to what the SDP presidential candidate was saying about the fact that somebody who rigged in the Southeast is blaming the person who rigged in the Northwest, and those who rigged in the North are blaming those who rigged in the Southwest? Is it the bigger theory, therefore? And why should we worry if all of them have issues all over the country? Can't we just hope that next Saturday's election will be a lot better and Nigerians can move on or go to court, as INEC has asked them to do?
Well, thank you for your question. Regarding the first part of your question, I encourage Nigerians to go out and vote. We do not have a choice but to vote. If there is any lesson that we have learned in the 2023 general election, it is the fact that the Nigerian people, when they galvanize, when they mobilize, when they organize, they can actually strip what has become the kleptomaniac, the very, fatalistic political elites that we have in our country. So people have to vote, irrespective of the reservations that we have about the integrity of the Mahmoud-led INEC, about the complicity and the failure of the security architecture. I hope we are also going to address that, because this failure of the presidential and National Assembly election was not only by INEC. The security agencies also failed. Now we have to vote. We Nigerians now know how important it is to insist on those results being uploaded at the polling unit. I told you that I voted in the presidential election, and in my polling unit, I insisted that they must upload. In fact, even when other people were not showing interest in it, I insisted, and the gentle lady who came made repeated attempts and failed. So despite these reservations, we have to go out and vote, defend our votes, and then ensure that those results are uploaded. Regarding the second part of your question, I have always maintained the position that INEC itself is institutionally compromised. Why do I say so? It is beyond Mahmoud. The resident electoral commissioners in the various states, how much do we know about them? Recall that this president appointed some people with partisan leaning into INEC, including Loretta Onoche, whose partisanship the whole world knows, who said worked for the APC, was actively involved in campaigning. So when you have people with partisan leaning in the commission, that becomes very problematic. And I know as a fact that INEC is an institution with competing interests, with conflicting loyalties beyond the national, even at the states. So if they are saying that the failure was not targeted at a specific person and was throughout the country, that only leads us to the irresistible conclusion that the entire process was faulty. They cannot have it both ways. They cannot say that it fell in all parts of the country and then turn out to say that the process was credible. What is clear to me is that if the IREF was allowed to function as intended by law, probably nobody would be talking about the integrity of that exercise, because the whole essence of the IREF, the whole essence of the electronic transmission, is to ensure that as the voting is taking place, as the results are counted and announced and uploaded, you can sit in the comfort of your house and watch the traction and watch what is going on to avoid human interference. And here is the other painful part. The INEC regulations, the INEC guidelines, says that before a collation officer, a returning officer, can make any return, he has to ensure that the results as presented to him in the form ECH, the form ECH series, the physical forms, tallies with what is in the IREF.
Okay.
How do you resolve that conflict? This is even a point that Mahmoud alluded to. How do you resolve that point, that issue, when the results were clearly not uploaded? Even as I speak to you, results are still being uploaded after election has been announced, whereas by law, this process ought to go pari passu. So if this thing was widespread, was nationwide, that only substantiates our position that the entire process was faulty. As far as I'm concerned, there was no technological, there was no glitch. INEC decided that they were going to abandon the use of beavers for electronic transmission for reasons best known to them.
All right.
That is why Nigerians have to be very watchful. That is why we have to watch whatever they are doing in the governorship election.
All right. We don't have much time. I would like to ask you two questions. First, now the APC in Lagos, they are confident that they will win the gubernatorial election in Lagos. Well, some of them base their calculations on the fact that Bola Ahmed Tinubu, against all odds, clinched the presidential ticket. Others are saying that they are working twice as hard and are not leaving anything to chance, including attempts at even revisiting public dialogues and interactive platforms, which they had previously rejected in response to last week's unexpected electoral losses. I'd like your take on what you think their chances are. Secondly, the gubernatorial candidate of the Labour Party, Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour, is calling for the change of the INEC rec in Lagos. We have also heard from supporters of the Labour Party and the party over the past month for his replacement or even sacking based on allegation of marginalization of the Igbos. The Labour Party is calling it a deliberate disenfranchisement of their core supporters. What do you make of all of this? Now, should INEC heed to this call, and do you think that there will be enough time, and should they review their personnel going into the gubernatorial elections next week? this Saturday.
Regarding your first question, for me, I feel that the very rather strange and esoteric confidence of the APC in Lagos is actuated by their politics of bigotry. If you are seeing, Nigerians are seeing what is happening on Twitter, on WhatsApp, on Facebook, and all the entire social media space, there seems to be this ethnic bigotry where every 4 years in Lagos, we suddenly begin to hear that the Igbos are the problem. It seems to be a targeted attempt to use the Igbos as a scapegoat for ascendancy of political power in Lagos. And I find that very disgusting. I find that very appalling, that every election cycle, the Igbos must become the scapegoat for a particular political party to ascend power. Suddenly, it is as if the candidate of the Labour Party is an Igbo man, even though he's a real indigenous of Lagos. That is the politics that gives the confidence. The other part of it is the thuggery. I have seen videos, I have seen several evidence where people are being intimidated, people are not allowed to vote. That should not be tolerated in any serious democracy, in any serious state that prides itself at the center of excellence. If the APC in Lagos is confident of its victory, they must speak to the issue that matters to the everyday Lagosian. How has Sanwo-Olo fared in the management of traffic in Lagos State? How has he fared even in relationship with the citizens? Look at how suddenly he has become an influencer on Twitter, interacting with Nigerians on social media overnight. In the last 4 years, was he really doing that? Where was he in the last 4 years? How he delivered in education? How has he delivered even on the question of accountability? Nobody knows being governed in terms of finances. Of course, these things are not necessarily peculiar to Lagos. But why Lagos is the focus more than other states is because it prides itself at the center of excellence. Lagos stands in a unique position in Nigeria. Sanwo-Olo cannot run away from the ghost of NSAS. That ghost is a ghost that has to haunt his electoral fortune. He mismanaged and was actively complicit in the shooting at the toll gate. There is nothing anybody can tell me.
Okay, all right. That's Enibe F. Young.